Let's look at these serious out-of-school children in the northern part of the country and the danger it presents for everybody. Because for me, this is a crisis in the waiting. This is like a time bomb waiting to explode. I say this particularly because only recently we saw northerners coming up to start blaming federal government of neglect and as such trying to blame government for the out-of-school children in the northern part of the country. And it's not that actually the responsibility of training Nigerian child lie in the three tiers of government, the federal, the state, and local governments. However, what behoves of federal government to do is the policy and the funding. These are doing for all 36 states of the country without exception. So the question is, why is it that you can clearly see some percentage in the north that is mind-boggling? Talking about 60-something%, 50-something%, 30-something%, 40-something%, 20-something%. You are talking about children within the age of 6 and 16. 60-something% of that age bracket not being in school. I must say it's a recipe for crisis. There's no better way to say it. But again, we need to ask, how did we get here? Because even northern leaders, who of course for obvious reasons, maybe for subjugation, who don't want to educate their children, must be admonished to start doing so. Because if you look at the issue of insurgency, the issue of banditry, terrorism, it's all tied to religion in the north. Because somebody who is educated cannot come and tell you that Boko Haram, just that as they made us to understand that Boko Haram means Western education is sin. And of course, under the administration of Jonathan government made conscious efforts to educate the northern children. When he started building and marginalized schools here and there. But unfortunately, when Jonathan lost to Buhari in 2015, Buhari government never saw it as a good direction, as a good trajectory to follow. He jettisoned the idea, and currently we have a situation where northern leaders do not even see anything wrong in what is happening in the north. But let me quickly say that the issue of banditry is directly tied to out-of-school children in the north. Because recently, the Zamfara State governor have made it clear that most of the bandits are people they know who hail from their states. So it's going to show that if actually they get the necessary education from the cradle, perhaps they will not be into such evil activities. Because one thing is certain, just like psychology put it, that the newly born child, that the brain is a tabula rasa, a clean slate, on which the caretaker write anything he or she wishes to write. So the question is, if you are born a child, allow him to grow in the wild without parental care, without society caring for the child, definitely you allow that child to be vulnerable to be recruited into Boko Haram, banditry, ISWAP, name it. Because if you refuse to write the norms of the society into the child, Boko Haram, ISWAP will help you to write their own value system. I think that's the consequence we are all facing. And it must be addressed. From the point where northern leaders must realize that it's a disservice to humanity that doing to the children, not just to the children, but to the entire nation. Because what we hear happen in the north in terms of insecurity, kidnapping, maiming, raping, and all of that, is already being exported to the southern part of the country. And it's an evil wind that blows no one any good. That must be addressed. Because kidnapping is now very high in the southern part of the country. To the point that we are even seeing a report that claim that over 700 something Nigerians have been killed within 1 year by criminals, insurgents. I must say this is unacceptable, and that the government must rise to the occasion to protect lives and property. That is why I condemn the activity of someone like Shegumi, who have been very vocal in support of the bandits, who have been telling the federal government that they should negotiate with bandits, who have equally accused federal government that they are making bandits harder by bombing them. You begin to wonder, are bandits not hard in the first place? Who is advocating for amnesty for bandits? Who equally compare the situation of banditry in the north with the issue of militancy that happened in the Niger Delta? I totally disagree with him, because we record that under Yaradua, that it took federal government so much effort, and they failed at the end of the day, trying to make the world believe that militants in the Niger Delta were terrorists. The world refused to believe, because they knew that the militants in the creeks were fighting for resource control, were fighting for environmental degradation in the society. Because if you go and look at Ogoni, for instance, Ogoni is perhaps the most polluted place in the whole world. And if you want to clean up Ogoni, you are talking about 25 solid years with billions of dollars. And this as a result of impact of oil exploration. Then somebody will telling us that the bandits should be compared to, or rather with, the militancy in the Niger Delta, and because the militants had amnesty from federal government, the federal government should, of course, give the bandits amnesty. I must say it's unacceptable. That the best the government could do is to go ahead to acquire monopoly of currency power to deal with the likes of Toji Bello, the likes of Adeleru, either take them out in the battlefield or arrest them, prosecute them to act as deterrent to others. I must say it's unacceptable, even when we saw the likes of Adeleru, of course, who have a bounty of 5 million on his head, holding meeting with the governor of Zamfara and Katsina State. I must say that is unacceptable, because if you allow that, what they are saying is that the life of those who die as a result of their nefarious activities do not matter. Because so many Nigerian civil military agencies, security agencies have died in their hands. So the best the country could do is to go ahead to acquire monopoly of currency power to deal with them. I understand that the federal government of Nigeria have since made requests for about 50 fighter jets. I think it's a welcome development. We cannot wait to have it, if that will become the game changer. Because when the two leaders of Mahmouda terrorist group were arrested, I think everybody celebrated it. That is where the president must know that Nigerians, particularly patriotic ones, are in support of the government to ensure that the government root out anything that has to do with banditry from every territorial integrity of this country. Because these are common criminals who do not deserve mercy. Of course, they themselves do not have mercy on people. And to even lay credence to the school of thought that say that bandits do not repent. Of course, I think this is a position canvassed by the former Kaduna State governor, talking about Marginalization, who made it very clear that the only bandit that have repented is the one that have died. That anybody that is alive cannot repent. Because recently we saw a support repentant Boko Haram member who was reportedly reintegrated into the Nigerian army. And of course, he was caught by supposed colleagues, military personnel. And they discovered that he wrapped ammunition around his waist, which he intended to reportedly to send to his colleagues, Boko Haram colleagues in the bush. So it then go to show that all the noise about repentant Boko Haram is a mirage, is a deceit. That perhaps their commanders in the forest, in the bushes, may be seconding them to pretend to be repenting so that they could be reintegrated into the armed forces, and they will not use them to gather intelligence. So if you look at the burning down of maritime military base recently, you need to wonder that could have happened without an actionable intelligence on the part of the terrorists themselves, because they would have gotten an intel to be able to do what they did. That is why we are saying that the Secretary Church must be rejected. That's why we vehemently reject the position of BTLA when they oppose the proposal from the Plateau State Governor, who made a proposal to Senate Committee on Constitutional Review about state police. That state police is the way to go. But if the state police is not coming soon, the issue of forest guard that is canvassed by federal government should have a speed of light so that Nigerians can heave sigh of relief. Because to have it, though the federal government have since directed state governments to recruit between 2,000 and 5,000 personnel, depending on their financial capacity. But the question is, we are worried that the issue is food dragging, and that the 3 tiers of government should synergize to give it the speed that it deserves. And again, let us ensure that the locals are appropriately and adequately integrated into that security arrangement, because it has been established that all crime is local. And if all crime is local, then the locals who reside in those localities have the actionable intelligence that are needed to fight this level of crime and criminality. And again, there is this breach of trust between the locals and the security agencies. But once they see, the locals see that their traditional rulers, who of course have more authority over the people, over his subjects, is integrated into the security arrangement, it becomes easier for them to divulge such intelligence to the security agencies, who can seamlessly relate to or with the security agencies for crime to be nipped in the bud. Because I must say that until we fight insecurity to a point where the world starts seeing that the environment of Nigeria is safe for investment, it will be difficult for even Nigerian government to woo investors into Nigerian economy. Because the world is already a global village. They see what is happening in Nigeria on a daily basis. So it is a Herculean task for federal government of Nigeria to woo investors into the economy when there is serious level of insecurity. They can see it on a daily basis in the media space. That is why we must deal with the issue of insecurity. Even the Benue that used to be known as the basket food of the nation, they are not able to meet that role because of insecurity. I personally had an encounter where I interviewed someone from Benue who even made it very clear that currently he buys food stuff from Lagos and sent to Benue. Of course, this is a tragedy. It is better imagined than being experienced that somebody who comes from Benue will buying food stuff from Lagos and send it back to the village. You got to show that they are now mopping up the food in Lagos, in urban cities, sending to the village. So we are, or we may be facing, or food crisis may be imminent if the authorities do not write to education to do the needful. Because we must protect lives and property. We must police every inch of Nigerian territorial integrity, particularly the bushes, the forests, where you have arable lands, where, of course, you can cultivate crops to feed the nation. We are not, and of course, we are even thinking of diversifying the economy into agriculture. Of course, which is a better way to grow the economy. So how then can you diversify the economy under a situation where even farmers cannot go to farm? Under a situation where even a former governor could be attacked by a group that go by the name Fulani Nationality Movement. But again, I think the government must know that we are dealing with a very formidable force, talking about 4th most dangerous terrorist organization in the world. Because that's the way Global Terrorism Index put it. It said that the Fulani military of Nigerian extraction is the 4th most dangerous terrorist organization in the world. So the government must know that they are dealing with a formidable force, and as such, we must think out of the box. Because we cannot continue doing the same thing over and over and expect a different results. I think leveraging on technology is the way to go. Because the world is already a global village, and technology is the order of the day. Just like a former House of Assembly member from Borno State made it very clear that under Jonathan, that Nigeria was already winning the war against Boko Haram. Particularly when the election of 2015 was postponed for 2 weeks to enable the then government of Jonathan push back Boko Haram, because the North were very serious that they were not going to vote for Jonathan because they felt he was not serious in fighting insecurity. So Jonathan, who was desperate then, went to brought in mercenaries perhaps from Israel, and they were doing excellently well, according to that former House of Assembly member in Borno State. And according to him, they were leveraging on technology, and they were getting it right. And currently, we have even seen a Shegumi even blaming federal government again, saying that there are presence of Mossad agents in Nigeria, and accusing government that their target is to target Muslim leaders. That's why I say, though I do not have any intelligence, any classified information to know whether we have Mossad agents in Nigeria. But what I'm saying is, if for any reason we have such, and perhaps that is the reason we are seeing success against terrorism, against bandits, I think it's a work of development, and federal government should ignore such character like Shegumi and push ahead to root out banditry, bandit leaders from every inch of Nigerian territorial integrity. Irrespective of who owns his God, no matter where they hibernate, they need to be rooted out, set running, and bring to justice. Or better see, be neutralized in the battlefield to act as a threat to others. I want to say that two things are certain. They should either be neutralized in the battlefield, respective battlefield, in the respective theater of operation that the military is operating, or arrested, bring to justice to act as a threat to others. Whichever one comes first, I think Nigerians, particularly patriotic Nigerians, are solidly behind the government to achieve this. Let me say very thank you for your time. This is Lament and Samat.